Happy Friday and welcome to this episode of Friday Tech Bites. And it's been a while, but I'm joined by one of my teammates, Kirsten. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a snowy Friday here. It's been snowing nonstop, I think, for the last 24 hours. So it's a bit white outside.
It is horrible. And so Kirsten and I both are in Central Ohio. So that's a good reminder to let us know where you are at. Drop in the chat. I think we're live on all three platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Drop in the chat of your platform, the US state or the country you're in, and we'll light up the map. We love seeing where people are tuning in from. But yeah, Kirsten, whoa, we got a major dose of winter. In fact, even me, kind of most hardcore of hardcore, to always go in the office. I didn't go in today. So I did yesterday, though, which was just as bad, kind of. But you said you didn't even venture out yet.
No, I haven't ventured out, but this morning, when I was getting ready for this LinkedIn Live, I was thinking, I wonder if Rick's going to be in the office today. Because yesterday I had the call with our community manager, Ksenia, and I was like, I wonder if Rick's in the office, and lo and behold, you were.
Yeah.
So no, I haven't ventured out. My car looks like it might be covered with snow, a couple inches. Not
Yeah.
looking forward to shoveling that off, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was a pretty real storm, but the real trick was we had some ice before, and that's a really hard way to segue into our topic. But what we're going to talk about now that we've got the weather out of the way is we're going to talk about monitoring backup storage. So this is something that Kirsten and I work on a lot, and it does gravitate a lot to our Veeam One product. And you know, backup storage is the heart of it, Kirsten, but like kind of walk us through a definition. What is a backup repository?
A backup repository is a place where you are going to be storing your data, storing your backups. And there's a lot of different types of backup repositories that you can add to Veeam in the backup infrastructure. And what's great about Veeam too is that we're storage agnostic. So really working with what you already have to store that data for your repositories. So directly attached storage, a deduplicating storage appliance, network attached storage, object storage. And you don't want to forget about Cloud Connect, utilizing that service provider to help store your backups offsite.
Yeah, that's a great point. I cannot overstate the value of service providers nowadays. And, I talk to a lot of customers and like, well, I like this storage. I have that type of storage. No problem, no problem, no problem. And especially with the object storages in the mix, it's really a great time. But the question I want to highlight that is kind of the meat of what we're going to talk about here today, Kirsten, is that a Veeam infrastructure is indeed an infrastructure, right? And the thought is, and we've had this in our lab, and as we've, do things, interesting things with the product over the years, there's a lot of things that go into a backup infrastructure from a storage perspective. And what are some of the, perspectives you can add and topics that we want to be thinking about?
Yeah, so with the Veeam infrastructure, you're gonna have to think about your backup storage, where you want to store that backup. But also, are you copying your backups somewhere else? Getting that 3-2-1 rule. So thinking about the cloud copies, you want to think about that part of your infrastructure. And then when you think about like recovery time objectives and really meeting those for your business, replication. There's a lot of different ways you can replicate. Well, two that I'm thinking of, regular replicas and continuous data protection replicas, trying to meet that compliance requirement for your business. But you also don't want to forget about retention, because retention is really going to help figure out how much backup storage that you need, right? You want to be able to size your backup repositories appropriately, set up the correct repository, whether it might be a scale-up backup repository utilizing that object storage, because you have longer term retention. So there is a tool that's going to be really able to help you kind of estimate the amount of backup storage that you need to be able to store all your data.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point, and I forgot to mention this earlier on. You're going to put me on the hot seat towards the end of the session here related to this. Why don't you tell the audience what we're going to be doing towards the end?
Yeah, so we were supposed to we were supposed to say this a little bit earlier, but we got really excited talking about all the snow. But yeah, we are doing a demo in a couple slides here, and we want to make sure that you're ready to, vote on which demo you want. So be ready by your keyboard, voting one or two when that topic arises, just in a few slides. So get ready.
Yeah, because I don't know what's coming, and I love putting myself on the hot seat on a cold day for that. So, all right, cool. So let's like walk into the solution. So Kirsten, Veeam One is one of the products that really help here in regards to monitoring infrastructures, in particular a backup infrastructure. Tell us how there's a discrete advantage here.
Yeah, so Veeam One is really going to provide that visibility into your data protection jobs, your replication, any type of backup infrastructure component. So not only backup repositories, but also, your proxies. I think you even get some information on how well your WAN accelerators are doing. And so, it's going to really give you that visibility there, but it's not going to stop in the data protection operations. It's also going to give you some monitoring for your virtual environment, VMware vSphere, Microsoft Hyper-V. And when you connect to Veeam and when you set it up and you start connecting these different environments, your backup environment, your virtual environment, Veeam going to start collecting this data. And then it's going to provide you with these 5 key capabilities on the side. So you're going to get that real-time monitoring and alerting, getting those alarms so that you can be proactive in troubleshooting issues in real time. Resource optimization and configuration tracking. So, monitoring, what type of configuration changes are occurring in your environment, job configuration changes, restore operator activity, how many restores are happening. So really monitoring that. Capacity planning and forecasting. So think about, your Veeam backup repositories, being able to capacity plan and estimate for the future storage that you might need to support your backups. Chargeback and billing for those service providers, being able to show, how your VMs are configured and how much it's costing you. And then last but not least, intelligent diagnostics and automation. So, being able to use remediation actions, really engaging with intelligent diagnostics to troubleshoot issues very proactively and in real time to make sure that your environment's always healthy. So you're not having any type of, unforeseen, backup error. You're going to be able to address that while it happens.
Wow, that's cool. And what you just highlighted there, Kirsten, really emphasizes the point that I made earlier, that a backup infrastructure is indeed an infrastructure, and we need some visibility. And speaking of visibility, the producers just let us know that the map is ready, the first check-in of the map, and let's see who's tuned in. We'll start in North America. We got Canada there. Cool, nice big patch of green. That's awesome. We've got Texas, Indiana, Florida. We've got New Hampshire. I know somebody up there. Nice individual. Let's go on over to, let's guess with Europe. Yep, let's go with the United Kingdom is in the house. We got Swiss. And then one of our producers is over there in Romania as well as Georgia in the US. And let's go down south to Brazil. Another big plotch there. And over in the Africa region, we have South Africa tuned in, and Taiwan is in the house, a little bitty right there it is. So appreciate you at this time of night there. Welcome. Good stuff. And so that brings us back to the topic here, why we're going to want to talk about using Veeam One, Kirsten. And I think that this is something that here at Veeam on the product team, I love to make sure that Veeam One is really part of the conversation when everything else we do with backup comes into play. So, walk us through the why, and let's start with this first use case here.
Yeah, so proactive monitoring of resources, health status, data protection operations. So really letting you know when you set up your, virtual environment, you assign resources to the different machines. Being able to monitor those machines and see how they're utilizing those resources can really help you optimize your environment. It's going to let you know, hey, maybe this virtual machine needs a little bit more RAM, maybe it needs some more CPU. And then you can add that to that machine so it starts performing better. think about like your data protection operations. What if, you're not backing up a virtual machine that you need to be backing up? Veeam One is going to actually let you know which machine that needs to be backed up. Maybe even like if it's not even meeting a backup within the last 24 hours, you can quickly add that into your data protection strategy, back that up and make sure that you have that data available in case something were to happen to your data. Like what if that machine goes down and you don't have a backup? That sounds horrible, right?
Yeah. Well, you can't back up what you don't, or you can't recover what you don't back up is another way of saying that. And I think what you're also alluding at, Kirsten, I think it's really important when you think about right here, remediation actions and Veeam Intelligent Diagnostics. These are two, dare I say, next generation, really cutting edge capabilities that are relatively new to Veeam 1, but they make a huge difference in those finer points. Take that scenario you described where something isn't backed up or isn't backed up to the SLA you want. I love educating customers and saying, look, the remediation actions can be a natural action after that alarm of VM with no backup is triggered to take a backup and put it in a place. So again, you have at least a recovery point in play for that, because like I said, you can't restore what you haven't backed up. So having the way to handle that automatically really makes a big difference. And then tell us about one of your favorite areas, some of the reporting engines.
Yeah, the reports are super powerful. It gives you a lot of data points that you can use to, for decision making, analysis, provide to any key stakeholders in your business. And like I mentioned earlier on this LinkedIn live stream, some reports that I really like are, the job configuration change tracking, letting if someone's going in and changing your jobs. Are they changing the schedule of your jobs? Are they, removing a machine that needs to be backed up from that job? And then you think about your favorite report, Rick, the Restore Operator Activity Report. I think that provides great visibility into the restores and who's accessing that backup data, because you get to see who's performing the restore, but you're actually also getting to see where they're restoring that data to, even if they performed the restore. So a lot of the times, you can, look into your backup data. Did they restore it, or were they just snooping around in there? This is a really good report, to help watchdog your environment. And also one of the reports I have been really liking lately is that workload protection history report, because you can choose which type of workload you want the report to take a look at. So computers, file backups, file share backups, regular virtual machine backups, and then it actually gives you the flexibility to choose the different columns you want the report to show. So, number of restore points, if it was success or failed, what machines were included in that job. So really giving you a little bit more flexibility with seeing the data points that you want to see. And that's not all the reports that are there. There's so many reports I could talk about all day. But that's just a couple reports that lately I've been really, loving and really, working with a lot, so.
Yeah. Two things caught me there, Kirsten. For one, I'm just flattered that you remembered that the Restore Operator Activity is indeed my favorite report. But secondly, the Workload Protection History Report, I think it's probably a good idea. Maybe let's do a session, just a deep dive on that particular report, customizing it, using it, and going across all the different data types, the cloud plugins, agents, the VMs, file share backups and stuff. Let us know in the comments if you think dissecting, tearing apart, deep diving the workload protection history would be a good Friday Tech Bites episode. I think it might, but let us know in the comments if you would. All right, Kirsten, put me on the hot seat. What are we doing?
So we need you guys to vote, either one or two. Which should Rick live demo? We have some top backup repository reports, because we're talking about monitoring our backup repositories. So one or two, backups on repository, the scale out backup repository configuration report, or talk about some of these alarms that help monitor backup repositories. So think about immutability state, change tracking, and then bonus, taking a look at setting up notification and actions for these alarms. So Make sure you get your votes in here soon because Rick is going to be demoing for us, and I'm excited.
And so put a 1 or a 2 in the chat. And the producers are going to scrape up and they're going to put me on the hot seat indeed. So yeah, let me know which one, and I'm going to go ahead and secretly switch over to get ready. And Kirsten, why don't you see the feed and tell me what?
I think we're looking at number 2, Rick. So some backup repository alarms, and also looking at notification and actions.
All
Are
right.
you ready?
I'm ready enough. I'm limited on screen, but I want to show something just because you said it's my favorite, and it is. I have automated the restore operator activity report to run 2 times a day. And given that it's only the 4th of the month here, I kind of have a fresh one that is the end of the month from January. And so in the environment we were looking at, Kirsten did 2 restores and I did 1 restore. So I love having this visibility and I love having it come automatically. And then of course you can go on to the subsequent pages and see what was restored. So it looks like Kirsten did something in VMware and I did something in Hyper-V. But again, we have really good kind of visibility for that. So that's my favorite thing. All right, so I'm on the hot seat and we're going to be monitoring backup storage, and the backups on repository report is the winner. So the most important thing to highlight, first of all, is that we're in a very special neighborhood of Veeam 1, and that's the data protection view. So if you haven't set this up, friends, you really need to. This is a really powerful set of capabilities to view the infrastructure, the backup infrastructure, and what happens across all the workloads. And, I should highlight even some of the new cloud backups, which I don't have any errors yet, which is good. But the cloud backups, the file backups, the agent, and the VM backups, of course. But it gets magical right here in the these report windows. And the one that I'm going to walk you through is the backups on repository report. So let me go ahead and run that. And the backups on repository report is in Veeam 1's web client, which we used to call the reporter. And I was just in the monitor user interface. So let's go ahead and drop in some credentials and let's build this report. Now, one thing I'll highlight before I render this real quick, I ran this from the top level view here. Now, Kirsten, why would I want to do that this way here? You see how I ran it while selecting the parent. What's the magic of doing it that way?
So that's going to pick up all of the backup servers that you've added into Veeam 1.
Trivia. Good. You're right. And if I go over here, let's go ahead and preview that. And what's going to happen is across all of those environments, right? What you were seeing is, like, I think Kirsten's backup server is in there, my backup server is in there, Melissa's, and a shared one that we do for some stakeholders. And I get some really, really good visibility here. So across the entire enterprise, lack of a better word, in this environment, now I will disclose this is a lab. This is the Veeam Product Strategy Lab. But in all of this environment, we have 111 terabytes of used backup space in the repositories, and some numbers here, 59 different repositories. I will taper some of these numbers we have a lot of test scenarios and things like that. So it's not consistent with what you might see in a production environment, because it is officially a lab. But with all Veeam 1 reports, I love going down the list of the different pages. So each individual repository, you'll get visibility on what's in there, how much is in there, what jobs are going to them. And, here's one that's a little bit busier here. So this particular one is an Exagrid, and I have quite a bit of stuff on this particular environment going in there, and then a list of what's in there, right? The different applications. The visibility, Kirsten, is just really strong here. Anything you want to add to this report because I could look at every single repository and job. Anything you want to add to some of this?
I just think that this is pretty cool just to see, how much your backups, how much the size of the backups being stored on your repositories, and also kind of drill down into see what actual machines are being stored where on which repository as well. Just giving you a little bit more visibility in your environment, especially, if maybe you just joined an organization, they're using Veeam One, and you're not sure, what's going on. This is going to provide you a little bit more just information in general.
I do like the first page of the report because this has probably the most actionable part of information, and that's top repositories by use space percentage. So, Kirsten, looks like your cloud repository is full at this time. That would be to a service provider, but I mean, that particular scenario is okay, again, because we're a lab environment. But you'll see that the ones that are full are kind of highlighted that way in terms of a percentage. And then you'll see which ones have the kind of the most amount of capacity under management by these repositories. And if I look at this, this makes perfect sense. 3 of the 4 are purpose-built dedupe appliances, and one of them is a spaceless full backup technology with the ReFS file system. So all 5 of these have built-in storage efficiencies or data reduction technologies. So it actually makes sense, in my opinion, that these are going to be some of the busier capacity type ones. And again, if you know your environment, you're going to get so much out of this from these different reports. So I draw attention to the audit section. And then I would draw attention to the backup compliance, backup jobs, and configuration sections. These are where you'll get those really rich amounts of information across the environment. So good stuff. So let's exit the demo here. And I just got word from the producers that the next map is ready. So let's take a look at that. And I have to switch my context a little bit. We have over in the US, we've added Massachusetts, Indiana, and another one from Indiana. Good stuff. And we've also added Germany, and then we've added Egypt just up top there. Got coast to coast Africa. That's always a good top and bottom of the continent. Good stuff. So thank you so much, everyone, for letting us know where you're joining us from. All right, Kirsten. So hopefully people understand that a backup infrastructure, and in particular the storage, what's on the repositories. Hopefully people understand that that's definitely something we want to monitor and manage.
Yeah, definitely. Just, getting that visibility, I think is, imperative for every organization when it comes to data. I mean, data is what drives our businesses today. So
I agree. And then if somebody's not using Veeam 1, but they might be using Veeam backup and replication, what would they do? Do we have a trial? Do we have a way to kind of play with this?
Well, it's Veeam. So we do have a free trial available. So definitely check out the free 30-day trial. I want to maybe, think about maybe Community Edition there a little bit. If you're using Community Edition, or if you want to, get started, think about Veeam 1 Community Edition. That's still an option for you. It is a little bit limited, so maybe not for those big environments. Maybe for a small lab you want to maybe get started in, or maybe you're just a small, one-person business or something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe Veeam 1 Community Edition is the tool for you. You never know.
Well, I like to say about Veeam 1, and I'll double it down into the data protection view. It applies here as well. I've said about Veeam 1 that I guarantee you Veeam 1 will tell you something about your environment that you didn't know, but you need to address. And in the data protection view, same thing applies. You might not know that your repositories are almost full. Did you know that cloud repository was 100% full?
No idea.
That one was yours. It said KS on it.
I need to go fix it.
Indeed, see, I'm telling you. All right, so as we kind of wrap up, I want to highlight a very important announcement. Are you ready for this one, Kirsten?
No.
These live streams are brought to us by these 2 different producers. We've got, a couple of different people from the marketing team that help out, but there's one individual that helps us out with the camera, the feeds, and everything, and that's Mark in Atlanta. Today is his birthday. So
Oh, happy
not just a big thank
birthday.
you to Mark, but also a big happy birthday as well. He puts so much work into delivering the streams and pushing us to do better, myself included. So good stuff. Happy birthday, Mark. And then I want to also do a preview. Next week, you and I are back, and we're going to revisit something very important, the NAS backup topic.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that in a while, so I'm excited to, dive a little deeper and start the conversation again.
Yeah, I think, we made a lot of hoopla when the NAS backup engine came out, but we're going to come back to it. We're going to revisit and show and tell the current capabilities. And then on Monday, so just after this weekend, Dave and Jason on the Industry Insights episode are going to kick off a 4-point series on the DPR, the Data Protection Trends Report. This is something that Dave, Jason, and Julie and our market research team have been working on countless hours. They're going to dive into some of the drivers for change in the backup industry. And then, like I said, you'll see us, Kirsten and I are going to pair back up next week for the NAS topic. So Kirsten, stay warm and don't get your feet too snowy if you do venture outside.
I'll try.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Katie. And thank you, viewers. Have a great weekend. And that concludes our stream today.